and welcome back to the League of Extraordinary Atheists, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. We're here tonight with our special guest, Ryan Kristen, of the Last American Vagabond.
Huge fan.
Pleasure to be here. Glad I made it this time.
Yeah. So are we. We're very, very excited to have you. We're both fans of your show and all the deep dives that you take on it. Really great.
Best part.
Yes. Yeah. So before we start, I highly, highly recommend if you're watching live right now or later, you can pull up the live chat. He's he has commented in the live chat. You can just click his little profile and you can pull that up, and there's his channel. Check it out. We'll also have it in the description box below. I don't think we do yet, but we will. Yeah, so Christy, what's going on?
Hi, everybody. I am super stoked for tonight. We have somebody on that I listen to daily. I love to, as soon as I see it go live, I love to put it on while I'm doing stuff. Because I ADD. I can't sit and listen to something. I have to do stuff to take it in. But even with you, sometimes I have to stop so I can be like, what? Okay. Because I had just read something, or I read the papers. I read more than a couple newspapers, and I think people really should read their newspapers. There's a lot in there. And I'm saying take it with a grain of salt. You're never going to get everything in there, but more than what you're going to get on TV, than in a 30-minute news program, and a lot more detail. And so I really appreciate your deep dives. You follow the evidence and then talk about it, and that's so refreshing. That's why I said, Mac, we've got to invite him on, because I feel like you don't talk about your ideology at all. But from what I see, I feel like you're just this big old humanist. You just want the best for humans, and I applaud that. I think that's wonderful, and that's what we do.
It's an interesting. It's hard to place, because I'm a big advocate of the two-party deception. The lie we're sold about the fact that there's only two of this, of a multifaceted world that we live in. I think people try to nail it down. They would say I'm like an anarcho-libertarian, but. Yeah. Because I believe I have a lot of deep beliefs when it comes to the idea of anarchism, which for those that don't understand, that doesn't just mean chaos. I recommend you dive into it. It means rules, but no rulers, right? It's very specific in that case, but it's basically open outside of that. But then at the same time, I tell people I have beliefs all over the spectrum. I have beliefs that people would consider Democrat. I have beliefs that people would consider Republican. It's just like today, it seems ridiculous that we feel like we have to keep ourselves inside of this very strict line. Right. It's like, oh, well, I kind of believe that over there, but I'm supposed to be Republican, so I got to stay on the line. It's ridiculous. And that's counterintuitive, right, to intelligent thinking. So I just try to find myself wherever I can,
Yes, and that's very human, and I love that. No human is one exact way, and if you are, well, something's wrong, because you were made then. You were roboted into that person, because it's not a humanist place to be. And I love the message. That message you just said right there, that there's you can have all of these facets of your beautiful human life. There's no such thing as just two ways to be. That's been a lie from the beginning. It's so counterproductive, like you said. It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
I would also add too, just now that I thought about it when you were saying it first, I think and what you said is important, that nobody reads anymore. Nobody, right? And it's crazy to me. I've been a writer my whole life before I ever got into this. I had a poem published when I was like 16. I kind of got me into it, and I started writing ever since. And the website started with all writing. It was all written articles. And I just kind of realized along the way, I'm like, this seems as nobody reads anymore. Like, people don't have this Snapchat world we live in. It's like everything's got to be 10 seconds or less, or it's moving on, Right. And it's like, people just need to read in general. I don't think I would advocate for reading necessarily newspapers by themselves, but like you said, all of it. Like that, like I was saying on the show, right? You should also watch mainstream. You should also read mainstream papers and watch, everything else. Like, combine it all together and come to your own conclusions, right? It's important.
Yes. I feel that all of that is so important, and I am fortunate enough that I have time to do that.
Mhm.
However, if I was still building my clientele in a salon, trying to fill that up and being gone 40 hours, 50 hours a week, plus coming home, and at that time my girls were in school. They're 20 and 23 now, so it's
Nice.
they're a little bit older, but they I wouldn't have had time. As a matter of fact, I didn't have time. And there were a lot of things that were happening during that time that I felt so mad at myself for. I felt like I was just sleeping through it because I didn't have time. Life was happening. And then the pipeline thing happened. The South Dakota pipeline. And I'm watching beautiful area where I come from, where the people of that area were trying to protect their land and getting hurt, physically hurt, because the police that the people who lives there, taxes paid for, were protecting the corporation. And my mind was fucking blown. And that's when, I mean, Mac knows, that was the time when I was like, no more, never again. Am I ever going to sleep on this? Because this, I'm watching this like it's happening in Israel or it's happening over there. But it was I'm from Iowa. I was born there. It broke my heart. And so ever since then, I've made sure that even if I was tired, well, let me just read one more story and let me just do this, because it's my own fault if I'm not informed. And so shows like yours are so important because of that fact. I know that if I turn your show on and I didn't have time to read the 3 or 4 newspapers at minimum that I like to read, and I don't read the whole paper, I like my favorite authors and my favorite columnists. I know that I can turn your show on, and whatever you researched, I'm getting the full view of it. I am getting what happened, what was said, who said it, and then you say, this is how I feel about it. But don't take my word for it, you know.
Right.
I love that. It's so important.
You know what's crazy?
They're always linked down below too, which is always important.
Yes.
It's just crazy to me that is something that stands out today.
Yeah.
Telling the truth and you know not explicitly saying something's real when it's not, or it's like, how is that exceptional today? But it is. It's crazy that people can't have amicable disagreements anymore. People can't,
Right.
it's crazy. We're at a very weird time today for sure.
Yeah, because we're so prone to seeing this, like what's on MSNBC or CNN or Fox, and it's all just opinion, right? It's just opinion,
Totally.
Right.
but it's sold as news. It's sold as objective fact, and it's
Fair and balanced, even.
Right.
yeah. It's like when you see something like that is objective on one of those channels, you're like, oh, whoa, what just happened to me? Like,
Totally. Which does happen though, right? That's important.
Yeah.
Every now and again, you still actually get things that are real from them. It's like Caitlin Johnstone always says, if they tell you it's going to rain, you should probably get a coat on. But when they start talking about foreign policy, consider that they could be lying to you. It's like they drip little bits of truth here and there, but they lie where it matters.
Yes.
Something that's been driving me nuts recently, and I sincerely hate this, but I've started to recognize when my YouTube just pulls up, because like I just let it go when I'm at work. I've started to recognize Carl Tuckerson, because I'm trying to get this other opinion, and too often recently he's right on a few things, like Iran, and he's had Tulsi Gabbard on his channel and stuff. I'm just like, what? Why?
Don't make me like you.
Fucking Anderson Cooper over here is the biggest piece of shit. Which is, it's just like, it's a big, it's a paradigm switch for me still sometimes, because like what Christy said, the Dakota Access Pipeline is something that really started making me want to pay attention more. Because I'm like, wait, this is a sovereign nation? I thought we were through with taking over other people's lands. And obviously I was way off.
Yeah.
Obviously, a year later, I'm like, oh yeah, we're totally not done with that shit. But sometimes, like, you just need that little window of seeing something that's absolutely atrocious to start paying attention, and or you need someone to say something about it, right? Yeah. So it helped seeing what was happening there and how so many protesters came and like ordered attention, right? But it's sad that we've had that, and that like sparked Christy and I's attention. But so many people that I talk to in everyday life now, they had no idea any Americans were in the Venezuelan embassy. And that was such a huge deal. But people just don't even know about it. I feel like if we just get more voices to talk about what's actually really happening, more people will care. It's just trying to get the word out there.
I agree. I think the biggest hurdle we have to overcome is to get enough people aware of what's actually happening, and not just that, but at the same time get enough people then willing to be open about that. Because there's such an issue with self-censorship today, and I think that's one of the biggest efforts by the just ruling establishment, that they make you feel like you're on the fringe, right? You're the crazy one. If you say these things, you're on the outside. But I'm starting to feel and recognize that may not be the case today. I've been arguing about the false majority for a long time, but more than ever lately, I'm starting to think like, wait a minute, is it possible that we are actually the majority, but there's at least half of that majority that's like so afraid to say they think that, so we don't even know, and we still feel like we're the minority? It's like, it's very interesting. And so it's we really have to get people moving enough to speak out again. And people always get angry and say, oh, we need to take action. You're just talking. And it's like, okay, go ahead. Step out there and take action when no one cares what you're doing and no one's paying attention. Let's see how far you get, right? We need to get enough people that are aware first before we can do anything. They'll just shut you down, sell a lie about you. You'll be the terrorist tomorrow, and it's all game over.
There's that.
All over the place. Information is key. Knowledge is key. Education is key. Those three things, information, knowledge, and education, are the most important. There's nothing more important. Nothing more important. If those three things were precedent, there would be no regime change wars. There would be no starving.
Well, you could argue, though, that many people think that they're doing that. Right? But they think that they're informed. They think that they have the right information, and that's the problem. Is that there's a level of apathy to it. People don't want to. It's like they can comfortably settle into the lie, even maybe kind of thinking it could be a lie, but just put it out of their mind because it's comfortable. And I feel I get to even comfortable. I get to feel like I'm on the right side and I'm doing the right thing and telling the truth. And deep down, I feel like they kind of know that could be a lie. It's like. But that's the problem, but there are also people that just don't know any better. There's a lot of those too.
A lot. We've got to break through that.
There's like Alex Jones, who he knows when he's lying, right? But his viewers don't. They think this is truth, right? They don't feel like they're being awful, horrible people. They feel like they're just this minority who knows the truth. And we don't teach enough skepticism in our schools to tell the
totally. What's interesting about that, though, is the Joneses of them are the most dangerous because he also says a lot of things that are true, packaged around a very crazy way of reporting it. Like the example that I always put out there, and it's even saying this to the people that aren't even just slightly already awake, it seems crazy and ludicrous to them. But Alex Jones came out with that story that everybody still quotes as like the go-to. He's crazy about it's turning the frogs gay, that whole story, right? Everyone talks about that. But guess what? That's a fucking real story. And the way he's reporting it is meant to make it seem ridiculous. What was happening was it was proven that there was chemicals in this area they found that were actually changing the hormones in these frogs. And that, but selling it as that turns them gay makes it seem ridiculous. But what we should be concerned about is that's also in your drinking water, affecting your hormones. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like people just looked right past it because it sounded so absurd and ignored the actual scientific report. And I think that's what he was meant to do, to come out and sell it in such a crazy way that they just ignore the facts and move past it. And we aren't concerned about the fact that there's hormone altering drugs that are in this natural environment. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's how those people are meant to work. Right?
And I think Alex Jones, what an easy, useful idiot. I mean, the term useful idiot, that's him. He could have been used so easy. Hey, we'll make this male enhancement for you. We'll package it for you. Say these things.
I don't think he was used, though. My opinion. He could be. I think he was part of it. I think he was well aware. Here's my opinion. I mean, this is total speculation because we could never know. But I think at some point along the line, he was approached and brought into this? Because there was times in the beginning where, I mean, you saw a shift in his message. Yeah. Whether, whatever topic, there's specific topics where you very clearly saw this shift as he, changed. And then you see times where I've seen parts and videos where he's involved in some altercation, like trying to yell at somebody, and something happens and they fell into all these people. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 3 people looking like Secret Service types came out of nowhere and grabbed him and took off. Right. It's on video. And that could, I guess, been his bodyguards, but I was like, that was really suspicious. And there's so many things like that where I think at some point he just kind of crossed over to the wrong side, But who knows? Maybe he is tricked, I mean, we don't. Who ultimately knows?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he's a conundrum for me. I don't approve of him, but at the same time, I don't understand anything about him. How could I? He's an American phenomenon. I think it could only have happened here. I don't see someone like that getting, I mean, yes, we have the freest free speech, and that's wonderful. I would never want it. I will stand up for people I hate's message, because that's what it's for. That's why there is free speech. If I don't stand up for someone that I loathe and don't approve of's freedom to say what they want, then it could be turned around on someone that I do approve of. And so I'm firm on that.
Who just said that? Somebody well known, I forget, I'm not going to remember the name, but the idea is that if you're not willing to protect the worst of the speech, then you don't believe in free speech, and it's something like that.
Taught me that.
What's that?
Noam Chomsky taught me that in
It might have been him now that I think about it, because I feel like
97.
Yeah. But it's so, but you know what though? It's very interesting the time we're in, because, it's, for instance, people make claims all the time, especially politicians, that, we're unique because we have freedom. And it's like, there's so many other countries that have freedom, and just even in a lot of ways, arguably better, different, and more broad than ours. Right. And so it's like in a time where the free speech aspect, I don't even know if that's true anymore, but I don't know if I'm not actively keeping track of other countries and the way they do it. But, we have the issue now that's conflicting with the idea of hate speech and the idea of, pronouns and all this stuff. And it's getting really murky now, where it's like, free speech, except when you hurt my feelings, and it's like, what? It's getting out of control. And I wonder, even in contrast today, when you just discuss the ideas of just simple freedoms, we still believe these tenets, but are they actually still there? You know what I mean? Like, does the U.S. government actually still care about your constitutional rights? Clearly not when it comes to people that I can point out to numerous examples, So it's like, I don't know. I feel like, you guys familiar with John Whitehead? He's a writer. He does a lot of anti-establishment kind of stuff. Well, he's written a lot about this topic, this idea of being, I forget the term he uses, but there's a classic idea of a style of prison that was built around a center tower in a circle. There's a name for it. I can't remember. But he makes the point that this is the prison we're in. We don't see it, right? It's like we're in this prison and we feel like we have all these freedoms, but when it really comes down to it, like it's socially engineered to the point to where we think we have things we don't, basically. Right. And it's like, yes, we can still talk and do this like we're doing. There's still a level of it. But once you cross a certain line, right, that doesn't exist, which shows you it's not as real as you think it is. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? I feel like it's a dangerous time that we're in. And that's kind of where we're heading, social media.
I agree with that. But because this year I embarked on this American history, which caveated into world history, I did a 15-week series where once a week, well, actually the whole week, I would research between 4 and 6 years of history for a whole week. And then one night a week, I would do like a 45-minute to an hour presentation on that. And then pick up right where I left off, because I wanted to cover the 20th century. I thought, because of all this, I'm a history nerd. I love history. I love American history. I love it. I think everything that we need to know to not make the same mistakes is written the fuck down. Like, come on, people, let's get it together. So go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask if, in that same context, though, especially doing what you're doing, like questioning things in that process, did you ask yourself whether what you were learning was actually at least possibly not what happened, right? That's important. Because we find things like, and I'm sorry, I know I cut you off. I don't want you to finish, but things like Paul Revere, these stories we have that we find out aren't even real, right? But we still tell them. It's like, wow, that's
the apple tree. I'd never tell a lie. The American flag. I mean, I can go on and on and on with all of these tall tales that were myth mystified for our future.
or just entirely fabricated. It's like, even the Columbus discovering America. Yeah. We've known that's not accurate for a really long time, and we still just do it. It's like this propaganda, it's crazy.
I have strong feelings about Columbus, very strong feelings about Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
I was really happy because I live in Ohio, and I saw on the news on like Columbus Day that Columbus, Ohio wasn't celebrating Columbus Day. Like, hey, way to go, state. I mean, like, you're doing a couple shitty things right now with the abortion, but we can do something right every now and then.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that there's a man named Columbus, and he is this big, huge part of history. He really is. And Columbus, Ohio was named after him. And for a long time, America celebrated Columbus Day. But this is why we don't. And then move the F on.
Just acknowledge the honest history. Yes, he did this thing, but he also committed mass genocide. He also, did really, really bad, terrible things. But so did a lot of people at that time. It's like you got to give. We're incapable in this country of giving the full picture. It's unbelievable. It's because in that same, like I said, even that point right there, we don't want to talk about the fact that he did terrible things. But even then, from that same my side, we should be able to point out that the times were very different. And anybody in that position probably would have done some pretty serious things like that. It was different times, So it's so weird to me.
Journal. If anybody gets a chance to go back and read Columbus's very own words, I gagged. I almost threw up. It's disgusting. There's parts where he
And hello, everyone. We're back. Sorry about that. Skype did a funny thing. So that happened.
That's what happens when you talk about truth.
Yes. I knew it.
Start censoring us.
Knew it.
Yeah. So there was something I wanted to point out. Let's see if I can think and remember it real quick.
At the same time.
Let's see if I can think and remember.
Buddy.
Right. No, it's something that you had said, Ryan, about oh crap! I just completely forgot. Chrissy,
No
what do you
worries.
got?
Well, I'll tell you what. I had a question I wanted to ask you guys, actually,
Yeah.
what you might think about that. Well, first of all, too, I wanted to point out, just in case, because I want to even ask. It's interesting. The name of the podcast is very interesting, and for my fans, no, I'm a Christian, right? I'm not an atheist,
Yes.
so
Right.
I just was interested by that. Was that like are you guys atheists, or is that something like the show kind of a thing, or that's interesting? Because I actually can understand where people come from in that. The idea behind it, like, or the ideology around it, but it's just I was raised in this as a Christian, or actually as Catholic.
So were we.
Yeah, and so it's
Yeah.
interesting. So my question would just be like, so what was the kind of deciding? I maybe you guys don't want to get into it, but that's a talent of your podcast. So
Actually, that would be awesome. You want to go first, Zach?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. That I can remember. No, yeah. So first, the name and the idea of the show is pretty straightforward. It's run by a league of atheists who are for humanism.
Yes.
So we really want to focus on two main things besides like looking at religion and like kind of breaking down those arguments, because that's what the rest of our community does.
Right.
Like part of a larger group of atheist YouTubers who make a lot of religious arguments, whether it be against like Christianity or like the Muslim faith, or really whatever. But Christy and I also have an interest in politics, and if you want to change people's minds on religion, that's fine. But also, like, religion gets into politics way too much. And we thought, well, maybe this is something else we should focus on. Maybe we should focus on religion and politics, because if you look at like Sharia law, religion and politics. If you look at Israel with the Palestinian people, that's religion and politics, like often. And it's the same thing with like the defense contractors, like from Blackwater. Christy was telling me, like, they say they're God's army, so like they can do pretty much whatever they want with this clear conscience, because they feel like they're doing God's work. And just like, well, this is some of the stuff that we would like to point out.
Totally.
But also
look at QAnon today, right? It's exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's that. And we also want to expand and do more like charity work. I want to, like, when we have a big enough audience, and I know there are people in similar areas, I would like to organize groups together to do like more charitable work, and like do fundraising, do humanist things. I would really like to do that. Yeah. And build secular communities, because the atheist community is just spread out and gathered up on the web, but I would like to try to help community build outside of just the internet. So that's kind of what this group's aim is. As far as my views go, I used to be a Christian. No specific.
A conservative Christian.
Yeah, I was a very conservative. Yeah, I watched Fox News. I was a big Glenn Beck fan.
We were all there at one point, right?
Exactly.
Not me. I was a tree-hugging liberal.
Yeah. No, I just mean we were all lost to the mainstream media at some point, one side or the other, two-party deception, right?
And I was super homophobic and a lot of other things. So like a lot of my views have changed. Kind of like just kind of coming out of religion made me start to question more things. And so I have my own channel called Gray Skeptic. And that's kind of where like that like led to is like, I think there's a lot of gray area in these topics that we act like are black and white.
Right.
So I like to try to promote skeptical thinking and like put things on a scale from white to black with all this gray area. And like, so
totally.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that the topic is so interesting, and I get because I greatly believe in what I believe, and it's like I just think what's frustrating is that people, like we were just talking about, that people have to be okay with other people's beliefs, and it's like people today. Like I can think of many people that probably watch my show that would immediately be, like, oh, they're atheists and just have a very specific opinion. And it's like, why would you do that? First of all, I believe that I'm correct, but how do I have such hubris to know that I'm the right thing and you guys are wrong? It's just crazy. Even though I do maybe believe that, and personally, it's just so crazy to me. And the reason I said that I believe that I understand the logic there is because something I pointed out so many times is religion is the cause and the catalyst behind basically all of the major catastrophes and wars throughout history, And so I just think what I believe is that it's being used by people in power to manipulate people, which you could make an honest argument that's why we should avoid it. But I would argue just that there's ways to find paths through it that would be what it truly is, But I truly get the logic. I do.
Build that wall between church and state.
Right. Because I, for one, and I know Christy agrees, and a lot of people in our atheist and anti-theist community agree that no, we will fight for you guys' right to practice and believe whatever you
absolutely
want or need to. That's absolutely fine.
Think about that. Atheists are the most hated demographic. People would rather have a Muslim in America with the way that the climate is. They would rather elect or vote for a Muslim than an atheist. I think that there should be nothing wrong with voting for anyone that has the correct ideas, and it shouldn't matter. Yeah. So if the most hated demographic, which is also the fastest growing, by the way, which is willing to stand up for your right to believe whatever you want, just not to sanction it as law, to not legislate it as law. Because if there's going to be a theocracy, I'm going to be out. Like, I'm not staying around for a theocracy. And for my reason for wanting to be a part of this is I'm a humanist. First, foremost,
we try to...
There's nothing more. To me, I think that humanism is the most superior idea. That there is nothing...
Citizen of the earth.
Right. That there is nothing more beautiful than humanism. You don't hurt someone else to get ahead. You don't... If you know that doing this will help a group of people, but there's potential that it will hurt these people, you don't do it. You find a different way, and you do no harm, and you try to do the most good for the most people the most of the time. Yeah. I just feel that that's superior. And there can be Christian humanist, Muslim humanist, Hindu humanist, Jain humanist, secular humanist. I just think that when people let go of their tribalism and realize that they don't know shit. Because when I realized I didn't know shit, that came at the end of my 20s and then most of my 30s, where you think you know everything. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. I thought all kinds of things that I think are just absolutely absurd now. But coming from a humanist place, if I meet somebody who thinks those very things that I know to be absurd for me to be mean to them or call them dumb or stupid is calling myself that because I was there. So for a humanist like myself, I see myself in them. And I think, well, they just are where they're at. And so for me being where I am, it doesn't mean I'm better than you or I know more, which I do, but I wouldn't ever, do that. That's not where it is. Where it is, hey, I know this cool thing. Here's a book. Let's read it. Let's talk about it. Tell me about what you believe. How do you know it's true? And you build these relationships. You let people see you for who you are. Not that I'm an atheist, not that I'm a humanist, not that I'm a hairstylist or a lesbian or a mother, that I'm a human, that I'm a human. And that I don't need to be related to a child to be upset if that child's hurt. I don't need to know you to have my heart broken if your heart is broken. And I think that that's where we need to come from. That's legislatively, environmentally, humanists. That's where we need to be. Yeah.
See, I agree, but the only I just would take it one step further. I would just say that I think that we need to remove the concept of ideology from anything we're doing that has anything revolves around politics. And I don't just mean religion. Political ideology. Why do we need to associate with something? Let's just vote on merit, vote on the ideas, right? It's just crazy that we have to have this. And I think we put it all aside. It shouldn't even be discussed. You go home and you be what you want to be. It shouldn't even matter, and that's and that's exactly what you're saying, right? And the problem is so many people come at you as an atheist as if they need to try to change your mind, and it's like if you want to hear what I have to say and my beliefs, we'll talk about it. But I hate when people try to force their opinions on somebody, and that is what has been given. It's almost been it's been deemed almost like righteous today, like even from political stance, right? It's your job to go out there and force your opinions on these people. It's counterintuitive. It does not work. You cannot force someone's mind to change.
That's the opposite of freedom.
Yeah, right.
Your freedom to be an asshat, taking away someone else's freedom to be an asshat. Just no more asshats.
Yeah, I want to build onto that real quick because I finally remembered what I wanted to say. Because we kind of got back on the topic a little bit, is where we were talking about basically tribalism and labels. Why do we need these labels? Also, I want to add in ranked choice voting.
Yes.
Also, vote on choice voting. Make it ranked choice. That'd be awesome. That'd be
free and fair elections, money out of politics, ranked choice voting. Okay,
yeah. So, anyways, that out of the way. I want to point out I made a video a year ago on my other channel. I think it was just called Labels, and the whole point of it was showing, making the point that labels help as much as they hurt. Right? When you learn a label, well, that label carries meaning, right? So you can learn more or less about a certain worldview, like Christianity, socialism, democracy. You can learn something about a label, and you may agree with that label. You could say, okay, cool, I think I'm a feminist, right? But labels are also taken out of context sometimes. Sometimes they get multiple meanings, or sometimes you think you have to fit inside that label, like what we were saying earlier. Yeah. So you will adjust your worldviews because you're like, well, I think I have this view, but that's a Democrat view. I don't think I really want healthcare for all. And you see these polls that even Fox shows how 70% of their viewers, 73% of their viewers want Medicare for all. You don't hear that over there. Like you said, because they're probably scared of saying it.
Yeah,
totally. They're all like, "Oh yeah, well that's weird. I thought as a Republican I wasn't allowed to hold that view."
Yeah, well, and this is where I would add this is where the powerful people come in, right? Like you're saying, this is where they then get in and influence what we think a label is supposed to mean, as opposed to it meaning what it would organically mean, right? They manipulate us into thinking we have to think certain things, and then and this is how they change it,
Yeah, socialism, communism.
Yeah. I'm sure that I'm anti-government. I'm not a fan of government, and I can, that's a hard sell for some people. But the reality, though, is that I'm not a fan of socialism or democracy, but socialism is grossly misunderstood today and given this horrible image. And it's just like, if I had to choose, I'd probably pick democracy over socialism, but it still doesn't mean that it's what they make it out to be, right? I just want none of it. I want an anarchist system. That's what I really want.
I do I love very healthy safety nets because I'm a humanist. I think that, you have a very wealthy country and there are going to be taxes taken. Those taxes should benefit the MF people. That period. There's nothing else after that.
What about no taxes at all, though?
For them. What was it?
I said, what about no taxes at all, though?
I'm not a proponent of that. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I think we both pay taxes to a point. We both are pretty like democratic socialist ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, I mean, I don't know if I'm necessarily an anti-capitalist. I think capitalism is fine as long as like you said, there are rules, right? But I don't necessarily want rulers, at least not to have as much power as they do now. Like
and they should follow the same rules as everyone else.
Yeah. I think that government should be for the people, by the people.
And completely governed by the people.
Over the people.
Historically speaking, especially like our country is a perfect example. We were meant to be a technically a constitutional republic.
Right.
Which is and I arguably never really were, right? I mean, there are people that they were extreme federalists that were in that room, right? I mean, they had designs to make the kind of massive federal government we have today. So I think historically the problem with anything like this is that powerful people will migrate towards the top and consolidate control. I mean, there's not been an example throughout human history where that hasn't happened. So this is where it gets into the problem of why this is where I try to sell people on the outside the box thinking. We need to shatter the paradigm. We're so focused on trying to pick a government that works properly when we need to start recognizing, in my opinion, that it's those powerful governmental people that are causing the problems. It's just the problem is that people can't understand how a system would function without that. And I understand that. It's really hard. It would take me, and it has in the past, a 2-hour show to like explain the whole process, and I get it's a hard sell, but I just think it's like, for instance, voting, we continually vote for a president and every single time they promise, and then they don't do it and it goes back and we go in the same direction. It's from Bush to Obama to Trump. It doesn't matter what side. Yeah. So it's like, at what point do we stand back and go, okay, wait a minute. Do I again vote for the people that they put in front of me and pick one, or do I start asking whether we should be participating?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I know that's hard for people, but we got to start asking, what if this doesn't work? What else can we do? Think outside the box, Right.
And if it doesn't work, and then 100 years later it doesn't work, and then 200 years later it doesn't work, and then you're still like, hey, it's not working and we're still doing it. That's the problem. Tulsi Gabbard, which is Mac's favorite candidate. He loves him some Tulsi Gabbard.
I am too. I'm a big fan of hers right now.
Me too. My dream team would be Bernie president, Tulsi vice president, Elizabeth Warren in charge of banks, Wall Street, financial, and then I need Nina Turner head of education. Like, I've got my dream team laid out. Like I don't play sports, but I'm all about that.
I think Tulsi for me is the only one in that group that
That's real life.
Yeah. Well, she said something this past week that was exactly like what you're saying. She said, what's the point of getting Donald Trump out if nothing changes? If the system, I know you guys need to get him out. I understand. But what's the point? Yeah, he's really bad at all the things he does. But all the stuff that the rest of the government's doing and getting away with more because he's so bad, that's all going to be there. It's just going to be a little bit more tight-lipped, a little bit more covered up, a little bit more.
Yeah. Just a new narrative.
He's just, hello, world, I'm an asshole.
But at the same time, I don't think he's that much worse or better than anyone before. I think that he has very aggressively increased the wars, even though they pretend like that's not happening. Or they just say, oh, it's their wars, and he's trying to get out of them by going further in. It doesn't make any sense. But he is clearly increasing all these fields of war, and I think that's because he's a very, very, full of hubris, and he's got people like Bolton and Pompeo driving him that direction. But at the end of the day, we were already headed in this direction, And I really feel like people try to demonize Trump, and I'm by no means a fan, and you know that. You watch the show. I do not think he's the solution. I think he's part of the problem. But I would be just as unhappy with Obama right now. I mean, it's the same stuff. It's just all about narrative control, manipulation, I really like Tulsi Gabbard because of like I've said, I'll point out, Trump says something good. Good job, Trump. You said, I agree with that. It's correct. Doesn't matter who says it, But I'm very... What's that?
First Step Act.
What's that? For Trump. I heard you. Sorry, I misheard you. Yeah. Definitely. And again, there's any number of things that we could point out that would be potentially good. I was happy when it seemed like he was going pro-cannabis and then very quickly went back the other direction. And it's like, you got to praise him when they do good things. But Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is somebody that's, as I said on Fault Lines when I was on the show the other day, she is easily the best presidential candidate I think I've ever seen. But that almost in a way makes me more skeptical. Yeah. I mean, look at Obama, look at Trump. They came out and they said every single thing at that time, which is what they knew people wanted to hear. Trump was the anti-establishment. 9/11, this and that, and nothing. He's right down the same globalist path.
Right,
so it just.
I never heard Obama say, "I want to audit the Pentagon."
Well, that's not what I'm saying, though.
He's down with that.
He said what was needed at that time. You see what I mean? She's now stepping up if she is, in fact, not what she seems, which I have no reason to believe that, to be honest. I'm just skeptical because we should be. Yeah. But if Obama was running in her place now, he would be doing the same thing, I believe. They came in and they said what was at that moment was really resonating with the certain people. Trump, yeah, exactly. With Trump, they recognized very clearly that there was a massive rising anti-establishment movement. Yes, right? I mean, right now, today, people don't even realize that about 40% of the country are independent. Most of the country don't elect left or right. Still force it on us.
Yep.
It's crazy.
The most ever. The most ever.
Yes, and that's what I think Trump was designed to do, was grab these anti-establishment people. And they had Russiagate on one side and they have QAnon on the other, both of which getting either side to trust the government from different perspectives.
Right. We love that. The Democrats love the FBI right now.
It's crazy.
What is really going on?
Yeah.
I mean this is like swooning over them.
Crazy. And then it's all because they've been convinced that the real enemy is this man Trump and the Russians. And so now all of a sudden they're saying, just trust the government that's been lying to you for decades because all of a sudden he's the bad guy. And then you got Q who's saying, no, Trump's the good guy. Trust that government. But at the end of the day, they're all trusting the government. You know what I mean? Like they're trusting the system, they're trusting the government. And all of a sudden you got, I swear there were libertarians that I was friends with that after 2016 were screaming about that everything Trump was doing. It went against every fundamental principle that they were practicing 3 months before. It's like they were wrapped up in it.
To caveat off of that, yes, it's weird what has happened. The way this country, and I'm sure it's common everywhere, but it's different here. The culture is so a celebrity culture. I mean, the world knows American celebrities. I don't know Serbian celebrities. I don't know Georgian celebrities. I don't know Yugoslavian celebrities. But I promise you, they know ours. So it's just different. And I have a really good friend. He is a Democrat, people person. He thinks that there should be, all of this balance, and he's really upset right now. And he follows the news, but he follows mainstream news. And he's older. He's my mom's age, so, about to be 60, anywhere between 60 and 65. And when I was telling him, this was 2 months ago, that no, that's not what's happening in Venezuela. That is not what's happening there right now. He was so visibly upset. Not at me. We have great conversations. But he goes, well, I don't know why they would lie. And so, but when I said to him, do you remember Colin Powell shaking the little thing saying weapons of mass destruction? You could see his face change. I mean, it was like, done. He goes, yeah. And I said, we're still in the same country. We haven't moved. We're still here. So if it was that easy then, it just wasn't that easy this time because we all have these now. These are changing the world for the better and for the worse. But I have to say, I'll take the good with the bad because I like knowing. Yeah. I like knowing what's going on.
That's another thing where I 100% promote free speech. I mean, even to the point of hate speech. I'm just like, cool. Like, say the stupid things you want to say, because then I can counter it. That's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm not okay with is calls to violence and doxing. and stuff like that. That's about it. I mean, at that point, I think, yeah, you should be prosecuted, or like someone should deal with you.
And harassment. Yeah, I'm not down with harassment. And I know that that's one of those where you'd have to prove it and it gets all iffy. But if you are calling someone every 5 minutes, bothering the shit out of them, that's harassment. I don't care what anyone else says. That's harassment, and you're an asshole. Yeah.
So have about 10 or so minutes before we hit that hour mark.
Okay. So, I do have I wanted Ryan to tell you about North Korea, because you don't know, and I want to see your jaw hit the floor, because when he has been so much fun coming into just being more informed, and he's like, I am a sponge, I want to know more, and if there's more and it counters what I already know, I need to know that too. And if it's from someone I don't like, but they have information, I need to know that. Like, I don't care. I want to bring it all in.
She's a junkie.
Yeah, I am. I'm a knowledge junkie.
Cool. Let's hop into North Korea, and then if we have an extra 5 minutes, there's a short conversation I want to have, because I'd like your opinion on it.
For sure. So, yeah, let's do that.
Cool. So North Korea. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah.
So the story is, and what's interesting is that this is perfect from what you were just talking about too, right? The idea of I forget who you said it was, but trying to tell them the facts and about Colin Powell, and it's just crazy how prevalent that kind of thing is throughout history, all the way up until even not just our past, but you just take the case you were talking about. Look at Venezuela. There's been at least 5 or 6 demonstrable lies that are proven now. And, so it's crazy. So this case with North Korea was the point I made in the show today. And this was from Moon of Alabama. For those that aren't familiar with his website, check it out. He's great researcher. That the story we've all heard, right? The recent one is that the Trump summit with Kim Jong-un that didn't go well. Apparently, they reported that Kim Jong-un killed every firing squad, killed all of them because he was displeased or whatever nonsense they put out. And everyone, of course, immediately I couldn't find a mainstream channel that didn't regurgitate this claim. Yeah. And so then, of course, the Moon of Alabama makes the article about, well, guess what? Here, and the point is, to start off, today it was shown that that's not true. They didn't die. They're still alive. And so he goes back and shows you 4 cases just in the last couple of years. There's more than just that, where they came out and said, okay, you guys remember probably the one about Kim Jong-un killing his girlfriend. That was a big story. Yep. Turns out, a week later, guess what? She's on TV singing or whatever. And now she's elected to a post in the government. And the point, every single time, they don't really go back, like you said before, they don't really go back and make an explicit point of saying, oops, we were mistaken. They either put a really small thing at the bottom, or if at all. And so the title skimmers of the world will never know that it changed, And there's another one after that, and there was another one after that. And in each case, Moon of Alabama shows that every single newspaper went out in spades talking about it. And then a week later, it came back that they were wrong. And my point in the show was how is this even the case today? How is it that we have people that call themselves the paper of record, the New York Times, and they're the one committing these most egregious mistakes over and over and over? Venezuela is the one we keep pointing out, right? Lying about the bridge being closed, or lying about who set those trucks on fire. I mean, these are explicit. I mean, the CNN came out, if you remember, and they said, I even just showed it on my show. They still have that article up right now. It says, our people saw Maduro's forces set those trucks on fire. We all know that's not true. The video shows clearly that it was one of Guaido's people throwing a Molotov cocktail. And even the mainstream media has later admitted that. But it's just stuff like this that blows my mind, that people still choose to take them at face value. You shouldn't take anyone at face value today. But of all people, the mainstream media, it just blows my mind today. And the New York, that part of just that North Korea aspect is a small microcosm of something that happens every day. It's crazy.
Yes, it is.
It really is.
And, I don't think what most people don't know that Raytheon helps fund MSNBC. Raytheon.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even more than that, think about the people, the broadcasters or the congressmen. These people all have stocks, and the revolving door politics, where once they get done, they just so happen to get a seat on the board of Raytheon, while they passed a bunch of bills that help them. It's complete. Our system is so chock full of corruption. It's why it's translating to our foreign policy. We just don't have any respect for law or human rights anymore. I should say the U.S. government, to be clear, not the American people.
I've been taking some side for fun economy classes and economy courses. And one of the fun things that just turned my stomach was the board of directors. If board of directors are appointed, but they're the ones who vote on how everything goes, and most of them have shares. If they have 21 million shares, they get 21 million votes. If your grandma has 5 shares, she gets 5 votes. Democratize the enterprise. I love that saying, and I'm going to keep saying it until we democratize the enterprise.
See, my only issue with the idea is that it all stems back from our governmental order, right? I mean, you can't blame a corporation for taking advantage of a corrupt law.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't. You can say, yes, you're a bad person, but at the end of the day, if that law wasn't in existence, they wouldn't. If they would either be caught for breaking the law or wouldn't do it. And so it's just, it's like we find our position, and that's the point. You have these politicians that are basically cultivating a circumstance for when they can later come out and just reap the massive profits from utilizing all the corrupt laws that are in place. You know, it's a very corrupt system, and it stems back from our governmental order, and that's what we have to recognize. And it doesn't change every time around. You know,
systematic. And when people say it's systematic, I know that sounds so cliche. Oh, it's this. It is. And these lawmakers are, like you said, going in, learning a whole bunch, making sure it's set up. The people who did this before him have set up things. Now he's going to fix it a little bit better and set it up for him. And then the next people are going to come in and make laws that help benefit them. If you think that millionaire and billionaire lawmakers, civil servants, my ass, lawmakers that are millionaire and billionaires are not going to rig a system to their benefit, they could be the best person ever, but they have something come in front of them where this one helps them, this one doesn't. They're voting for the one that helps them.
Yeah. Or even look at the DNC with Bernie, right? You guys are fans of Bernie. I mean, the whole point was that they wrote into their own bylaws the ability to just ignore what people actually voted for. That's why they didn't actually get in trouble at the court case. They said they got up, they laid their case out, and they said, look, we didn't have to do what they said. And the judge said, well, you're right. Case dismissed. You know, it's like, okay. So, and then that went with a resounding lack of discussion by the mainstream media, right? Yeah. That they literally were allowing themselves to ignore democracy. And it's like, oh, no big deal, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. Writing themselves in. It's just unbelievable.
Right. Yes. One of my favorite professors, Professor Nancy McLean, she wrote a book called Democracy in Chains. It's brilliant. She has this, somebody that was really important in her life who helped write laws and then retired because he wasn't a lifer. And he was looking at laws 30 years after he had left. And, you know, he's like thumbing through it like there's so many pages. He pulled out a couple copies from his day. They were like the front of a page and maybe a little paragraph on the next one. That was a law. It was written. Yeah. Now there's 7,000 pages for a bylaw. Because they write themselves in. It's insanity.
Well, it's also, I think back then they weren't really concerned with people really paying that much attention. And it was written for them. Right now they're doing it that way. So nobody actually gets to know what's going on. Right. The congressmen don't even get to read it. Do you see that one? Rand Paul did that one video on Twitter where he got that really important bill. I forget which one it was. It was the night before. And he was like, I just got this. He held it up. It was like that thick. And everybody's going like this. Like, how do they expect me to read? He was making the point that none of them read it. They don't. Right. They vote on party lines. That's it. It's crazy.
That's what they do. I mean, that's how we got Obamacare, right? Because it was like a Republican plan in the 90s.
Oh, it was Romney Care 2.0.
Yeah, this was Romney Care. Yeah, but they slapped it up. The Republicans wanted to vote for it because it's a Democrat plan. But it's your plan.
Right. But doesn't that show us the facade? Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not about left or right's an illusion. Like this is the same thing. They just wanted to get passed. So they said, let's just rebrand it now that Obama's in power. It's crazy.
And they know the people will fall for it because there was that whole mass of people that loved the ACA, but they would never have that Obamacare.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's so stupid.
Right. Okay, Mac, what was your little thing? Let's
my little thing. We'll try to end on is I'd like to know both of your opinions on voting third party, right? Because let's say world goes shit, and we get Biden and Trump to choose.
Which is what's going to happen, I imagine.
There's
sadly
a good chance it could happen.
I'm not voting for Biden.
Because I was told so often, and I disagree with this. All right, well, if you vote for Gary Johnson, then that's a vote for Hillary. I hear that from a Trump fan. If you're talking to a Hillary fan, if you vote for Jill Stein, well, that's just a vote for Trump. So what's your opinion? Because I'm pretty much dead set on if Biden gets the nomination, I'm pretty sure Tulsi Gabbard's still gonna run, and I don't care which ticket she's on. I'm gonna vote for her.
Right. All right. Let me answer first because mine is really easy.
Okay.
Vote your morals, no matter what, because there's this stuff called data. Then we have data on who people want. It's done. It is a fact. It is history. This data will show people said they want this and what percentage. We know that the last socialist in this country that ran for president before he got arrested and charged with the espionage, before that guy got arrested, he was getting 19% of the vote. That's insanity. He was the Socialist Party. Since then, we have the Red Scare, and there's never been another one. However, we know that data because people voted their conscience. So if the powers that be, which are still going to be in power for the foreseeable future, no matter what we want or like, then we need to work within the system. Those powers that be will have the data in front of them, and they'll be like, God damn, okay, well, Trump didn't work because we barely won. And nobody wants Biden, so we can never run somebody like that. But they really like this Green Party, or they really like this, even if they don't win. Vote your conscience. That is, be real, be true to yourself. Vote who you wish would be president out of the ones who are running, and fuck the system. That's what I say. All right, your turn.
What do you think?
Well, mine's more complicated. I think you might have seen me talk about it. I'm very open about it. Vote no one 2020. I've said it 1,000 times. I believe the system is broken to the extent to which it no longer matters. And so you could quote the Princeton study that shows very clearly that that no matter how hard you vote, it's about the same percentage that's going to happen, right? We have to come to terms with that. Yes. And we have, first of all, for those that want to think that that's un-American, we have to remember that abstention is a quintessential part of the American process. To abstain from a vote at a protest dates all the way back to the founding fathers. But we've been manipulated to think today that's somehow un-American. Now, I'm not saying that voting is not important. I believe that the system has been cultivated over so many years to the point to where it no longer has an effect. Very different things, right? And that's what I'm trying to tell people. But what I said last time, after trying to sell people on this idea that we need to, if the vast majority of the country didn't vote at a protest, that would send a huge statement to the world. Yes. But for those that still want to vote, and I believe that's fine. I don't discount that. I don't try to make people feel bad about it. If you do, just what you said. Vote don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Vote for what you believe in. Because like you said, that really upset me last time. They said, your vote, you have to vote. Your vote matters. Oh, but not if you vote for Gary Johnson. It's how can you say that in the same sentence? It's it matters. Your vote matters no matter what. But if you vote for him, it's not going to count. It's it's so dumb,
That was you're with the enemy.
Yeah, but you're right. That was everywhere at the end, right? So they were the whole time they were making sure that you knew you had to vote. It was the most important thing. But then at the end, they were aggressively selling you on only these two things will matter. So don't vote if and that's just so counterintuitive, right? And we have to recognize that. But at the end of the day, I want people to continue to research the things on my show, like Clint Curtis, who testified in front of Congress that he was paid to manipulate voting machines by a senator. And nothing ever happened about it, and we use the Diebold machines the very next election, right? There's very clear examples that corrupt people in the unelected power structure have set the system up to such a degree that no matter what we do, things will happen the way that they want them to. Especially if you remember the story we just talked about, the new machines they're already putting out, 50% of them are already out. that are this new. Basically, we have Israeli intelligence, our version of the NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security now in charge of our election machines. I don't know about you, but that makes me wildly uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
At the end of the day,
government of Israel having control of anything outside of Israel is uncomfortable to me.
Totally. But again, what I said in the show, I'd be uncomfortable with our NSA messing with our elections. We're talking about the Unit 8200. It's basically their NSA. Like, that's just crazy that they're involved. But to long point short, I think that people should get out there and do what they believe in. If you think you should go out and vote, do that. But just make sure that you vote for what you actually believe aligns with your beliefs. Tulsi, or even if it's some person you have that you don't think is ever going to win. At the end of the day, voting for the lesser two evils is still voting for evil. And we have to see that.
I know people in your chat are going to write your name in on the ballot. I've read it.
I don't want. Don't for me. I don't.
Put Ryan in charge. So just for clarification on that, real quick, do you think just in your opinion, do you think no one should just vote for a president? Should they still vote in local elections and on local issues? What's your thoughts?
That's an excellent point. It's a good question to ask. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think that the federal system is the problem. I think that local government can still have, and that's actually the entire sell point, that if you break yourself down into like the idea of what I see as a real anarchistic system, it will almost kind of resemble what this country was meant to be like without the federal government, except I wouldn't necessarily think of it as a government or having like a senator or a governor or anything like that. It would just be elected, people to speak for the society, whatever. But you get away from that federal government, you still have functioning local constituents and groups that represent them, right? So to vote for local government, I think is absolutely still okay. And I think we should do it, especially like your hometown, absolutely get involved. But at the same time, we need to be aware that the system is likely just as corrupt. But we got to start somewhere. But I think the point is not voting for the federal election, not because we think that not vote is going to really do anything, but the statement it will make, right? Yeah. The action that it could begin in people to recognize that we're not being represented. That could make a lot of change happen, But that's a great question. I think but the real answer is that there is no real answer, because we don't know what's actually happening. You just got to follow your heart, like you said, vote what you believe in, right? But when it comes to the president, we have to recognize how long this has been going in the same direction,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that idea holds a whole lot of merit.
Yeah, we need a system overhaul. From the bottom up, though.
Yeah,
From the bottom up, right? And I think that, when I say from the bottom up, I mean from the bottom up, inside factories, inside Amazon, every workplace, every restaurant, from the bottom up. I like the whole, it's getting off topic, but it's a good place to see where my head is at. I like the system that a lot of the Scandinavian countries have, that the CEO can only make 8 times as much as the lowest paid person.
That's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, because everybody knows where they're at and what you have to do to be paid more. When it's coming. Everybody votes on vacation days. Everybody votes on who the manager is going to be. If you're not a good manager, they vote you out. I love that system. I think that is the most egalitarian thing I've seen as far as humans can come up with, which is all we know so far. And I pay attention to that stuff because I
Sorry, you got to taste it.
My bad. She's been cooking on the grill outside. She got a new grill. She likes to cook everything.
Look, I made some fries.
Oh, nice. So, last quick question. We don't have to talk about it. I'm just curious if you've heard of that new movement. Jennifer Lawrence is helping lead it. Unrig.
Oh, unrig the system.
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence. Unrig. Yeah. Is that the same unrig that Robert David Steele and Cynthia McKinney were involved in?
You know, Christy? I don't.
That was Robert David Steele. Cynthia McKinney. Yeah, she's an ex-senator. I had her on the show for an interview a while back, but she they had a program called Unrig, and it was like #Unrig, and the whole thing was, I think it's the same thing, but they kind of dropped off of it though. So maybe that means she stepped in and went forward with it. The idea of it was actually really good, but some of the things that specifically I would say Robert was doing around it made me feel like it wasn't legitimate, I guess, not the movement, but what they were doing. But the ideas are great. So that's fantastic to hear that somebody else picked it back up, Cool. I'll have to look into it.
I like it. It's awesome. Too slow. But I like Unrig. I like that it is from the bottom up. It's, are you a teacher? Are you a nurse? Are you a stay-at-home mom? Get out and meet us, and let's all talk and figure out which one of us is going to run for this spot. And we're all going to help each other get these spots, because that's the only way we're going to find out, which they're all finding out all over this country, how corrupt these places are. Some of these towns have had their great-grandpappy was the mayor, then their grandpappy was the mayor, then their pappy was the mayor. And so, well, duh, of course, they're the mayor, and their cousin Andy is the sheriff, and their Aunt B, she does the courthouse stuff. Like that is everywhere. And, if nobody says anything, nothing is going to get done.
Yes.
So people have to say something. I'm so glad that we have these devices. I'm telling you, that's what's going to, it already is. We just stopped a coup in Venezuela. Humans, everybody give yourself a reply.
I would clarify my opinion. I think the internet is huge. The phones are becoming quite a problem in our society. But I know it's what you meant.
Yeah, there's a few downsides, but yeah. So we're 12 minutes over. Thank you for staying over with us. We super duper appreciate it.
I think we had a good talk. There's some fun stuff. We should come back on in a couple months or so.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Love to have you. Thank you for everyone who watched tonight. We have 22 people watching now. Really appreciate it. If you liked this, share, subscribe. That'd be awesome. Brian's link to his channel, the Last American Vagabond, is down below. Mine, Christy, and Nacha, our producer, our channels are all down below. Check them out if you'd like. We all hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And Christy, would you like to close us out?
Yes. Stay humanist, for God's sake.